Good morning. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order of the TRPA Operations and Governance Committee. Today is Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, and the time is 8:36. First item on the agenda is roll call to determine a quorum. Maria?
Miss Bowman,
Here.
Mr. Bass,
Here.
Miss Diss, Miss Gustafson, Miss Hill,
Yeah.
Miss Lane.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll go over the remote and in-person meeting rules for the day. For members of the public who are joining us remotely, to observe the meeting, go to trpa.gov. Under the calendar header, click on Governing Board Hybrid Meeting for February 28th, 2024. There you will find a link to the public webinar hosted on Zoom. To address committee members directly with your comments, raise your hand in Zoom by clicking the raise hand at the bottom of your screen at the appropriate agenda item. With your hand raised, you will be unmuted by TRPA staff and will have 3 minutes to address the committee. If you've used the dial-in numbers to join us by telephone, you can dial *9 to raise your hand and be unmuted. For items that are agendized as information only, we will hear public comment during the general public comment period at the end of the meeting. Comments on items agendized for action or possible action, we will hear public comment before the committee takes any action. For our remote committee members, if you wish to speak, you can now raise your hand in Zoom. You will find the hand icon on the bottom of your screen. Remote committee members may not use the chat box to make any comments or to have sidebar conversations. Please, everyone, remember to mute your mic unless you're speaking to cut down on background noise. Finally, I would also like to ask that all remote members turn on their cameras if they are able. Members of the public who have joined us in person, please raise your hand at the appropriate time for public comment, and you will be called on to speak in front of the room. Committee members who are in person, please raise your hand if you wish to comment and speak clearly into the microphone in front of you. If you're viewing the webinar on a personal computer, please ensure that your microphone and speakers are turned off to prevent audio feedback into the room. All right, let's get into the actual agenda. First on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
There are no changes, Madam Chair.
No changes, thank you.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you. It's been moved. And roll call vote, please.
We don't need to do a roll call for
the agenda?
Yeah, we can just,
Okay, so that will be deemed approved.
Yeah,
okay,
that's good.
Thank you. It even says that on my little sheet here if I was following along better. We'll now go to agenda item number 2, which is approval of the minutes. You will find those on page 7 of your packet. Does anybody wish to make changes to the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I wouldn't do abstain because I was not present.
Okay. I'll go ahead and move approval of the minutes. Can we do a roll call vote on the minutes? Or can we just say all those in favor?
Do a voice vote.
Okay. All those in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And I'll abstain because I wasn't present.
Thank you. Mr. Bass will abstain. That brings us to item number 3, which is recommendation to approve the January financials. This information can be found on page 27 of the packet. Mr. Kyler.
For the record, Chris Kyler, Chief Financial Officer for the agency. Apologize, our big screen isn't quite working yet, so we're going to have to look at the small screen, I guess.
Okay.
I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about state budgeting because we're starting that process now. California is still having significant problems. LAO came out with a new forecast last week before, where they basically added back about 15 billion worth of deficit for the next 3 years, including the current year.
Oh, wow.
So they're continuing to do things to cut budgets, cut travel expenses, cut back on some things like that. That pushes the budget projection for next year to 73 billion. which is pretty much back where it was before they started. And then this is in spite of or after all of Governor Newsom's shuffling things around in order to make it come down a little bit. In general, we don't have any BCPs in front of them for this next fiscal year, but we do have money at risk for obtaining monies for staff salary increases, and that's out there at risk. The immediate cutbacks are also impacting some of our other programs. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. We have 2 grants for housing, the HIT grants. There's a smaller grant that's been underway for a while, and then there's a bigger grant. And what they've done is they come back and they capped us at 25% of those total grants. For the bigger grant, which is the more meaningful one, that's not a problem because we really just started spending it. And Karen and her team are taking a look at that. And we think that we can still do most of the stuff we want to do, especially like the outreach portion of that and the upfront planning rather. The smaller grant is a problem because we've already spent more than 25%. So we have 2 invoices in front of them, a $40,000 invoice that they will pay, and there's a $60,000 invoice that they may not pay. And we're still in conversations with them. We're still trying to work the issues saying, hey, we'll comply going forward, but we're already over that thing. And that grant is actually not that big. So we can deal with it, but it's kind of disappointing there. This may impact other state spending next year because we're starting to look at the OWP and the transportation budget. And so there may be some reductions in there as well because transportation is going to get hit as well. So more to come on that. Nevada side is a lot more positive. They're kicking off their budget process next week. As a reminder, they do a biennial budget. So it's a 2-year budget. In both states, our request for budgets for the next year would be due in August. This will be Governor Lombardo's first budget that he's actually done from scratch. So, I mean, last time when he came in, he was transitioning into Sizzlex budget. So we may see some redirection on priorities and things like that. But they're certainly not anticipating the kind of problems that California has. That budget doesn't really go to the legislature until February of 2005. And that'll be after the next voting cycle too, right? Because it'll be all new legislature. So we'll just have to see what happens there. So that's kind of where we are with the 2 states. If I can transition then to the next slide, just some highlights for the year. So we're a little over halfway through the year, 7 months completed. Planning fees have come back up. So I'm not concerned about that as much as we're 6% above the 3-year average. And we're actually 6% above last year too. And we just had the fee increases that you approved back in October take effect at the end of January. So there'll be a little blip for that. We're still seeing good levels of applications and things like that. And there's a couple of major projects coming downstream, and that always helps as well. I talked about this a little bit last month. We've got 2 big LTRA grants around forestry stuff. And that's money that we're kind of acting on behalf of the Forest Service to pass out to other entities. And it's been a little slow building that up. So we may not hit the revenue target for the year on those 2 grants. But they're pretty much all pass through, so it's not really going to impact us in any big way. There's just some admin costs on our stuff. So you probably won't hit the top line number, but it's not an issue overall for the agency. And there's a couple of smaller grants that are also a little slower to ramp up. So that also contributes on the expenditure side to how the contract expenditures are so low because they're only around 25%. And a lot of that is because we had planned that money to go forward on the LTRA grants, and it's not doing that quite as fast as we thought. Staffing is fine. We've our new associate general counsel has started. Graham, he's in the legal committee now. You guys will get a chance to meet him later. And we've hired Marsha on full-time, not full-time, but part-time as an employee attorney, not as a contractor. And we'll have a 3rd lawyer starting in August, a very junior lawyer who will be learning things as we go ahead. Next chart, please. This is the revenue side. And again, the grants are very low, but that's those LTRA grants that are just aren't kicking in quite as fast as we thought we would. Everything else is pretty much on target. State revenue, we get most of that up front. The only differential that we haven't billed yet on the state funds is the TSAC grants. And those are treated as cost reimbursements. So we bill them as we spend the money, and they are spending the money on TSAC. So they're making progress on that. The other revenue line down there, by the way, is interest, and we're doing well on interest because the interest rates are up. So we're picking up a little money there. If I can go to the next chart, please. This is the expenditure side. Again, our associate counsel is now on board. We're making progress on finding a replacement for me. I don't have anything to report yet in terms of a name or anything like that, but we have a candidate and we're working through the process with that. And then the contracts we just talked about. And then if I can take the next chart, please. Here's the cash flow. We can have the next chart, please. Two graphs there. The one on the left is overall. The one on the right is off the mitigation funds. Right now, they track pretty closely because we haven't done that much with mitigation, but we did transfer 3.7 million to CTC for the Motel 6 project, which I guess we can now talk about. So we put 3.5 million into the escrow account for the purchase price and 200,000 to CTC for the admin costs and stuff like that. So they are in escrow. They had a PR release, I think Monday, little event there. So that's proceeding along nicely. That will obviously make this chart look quite a bit different because the after mitigation will plummet dramatically. But we put these two charts in explicitly for that. Those mitigation funds have been sitting in the banks for years. I think we calculated that it took about 10 years to build up that level of excess coverage mitigation funds to support this project. And that was very intentional on CTC's side. They've been eyeing that property for a long time, and they really, really wanted that property. So it's good that we're finally making progress on a pretty substantial acquisition. And that's the conclusion of my presentation, unless anybody has any questions.
Excellent. Wow, that's really good news on the CTC part. That's pretty cool. Are there any committee members in the room that have questions on the financials?
Yeah, my only question is with the state revenues and kind of hearing about California's deficits with, is it kind of accurate 2/3 of our state revenues are California and 1/3 is Nevada, or how does that break down?
Yeah, we're required under the compact to request money 2/3 to 1/3 ratio. Nevada's been below, but in the last cycle, Nevada came up. So now they are at 2/3, 1/3. And in fact, that'll hurt us a little bit.
And then is our 2/3 from California protected as far as, or can they try to claw some of that out in these budgets?
I'm going to give you a conditional yes on that. The bulk of our money from California does not come from the California General Fund. It comes from two special funds. One is the Environmental License Plate Fund, and that's where most of our money comes from. And then there's about $500,000 that we get from the Harbors and Watercraft Revolving Fund, which is based on boating fees. So the one's based on selling the specialty plates, not the Lake Tahoe plate. The Lake Tahoe plate money goes straight to CTC, all the other environmental plates. Those funds should be good going forward. But I want to put a condition on that saying, I don't know what Department of Finance is going to do and if they're going to try to raid the special funds to balance the general fund. But in theory, our baseline funding should be fine because it's coming from special funds.
Great, thank you.
Do either of our committee members online have questions for Mr. Kyler?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just two. This is Alexis Hill. I'm wondering on the grant front for California, if we have had our TRPA governing board members from the state of California reach out to our legislators, our state legislators at California, to let them know, our representatives, kind of the pickle that we're in with those grants. I just think that would be an important discussion to have. It's important on the Nevada side when we have those conversations. So that's my first question. And then the second question is, have we, when we are talking on the budget with the state of Nevada, are we ensuring that we're TTD fund that they gave us for the biennium, that they said, well, please come back and ask for it. We'll program it into the budget moving forward. And then when we're talking to California, as far as these environmental funds that Cody was discussing, are we asking for the 2/3 of the transportation funding for TTD?
Sorry. Hope I can remember your questions in order. The first one, right now we're handling the issues with the HIT grants at the staff level, but we certainly intend to enlist board members as we go forward on that. But we want to get a definitive statement on the staff level as to whether or not we're going to be caught under that 25% threshold for the first of the grants. On the California side, on the Nevada side, we absolutely intend to ask for the TTD money again a second time. cycle. The question I think we need to ask in the next few months is, do we want to embed it in as a permanent thing as opposed to a biannual request? And what I've suggested, and everybody's a little reluctant to do, is actually set up TTD as an entity in the Nevada budget system so that they would not have to go through us. They could just get the money straightforward themselves. That's a little, it's a little iffy as to whether or not we want to do that, and we want to have some conversations on that, but that's an option. It was discussed in last sessions at the committee level, but they made the decision to go ahead and route the funding through us and not to add TTD to the Nevada budget system yet. And they may very well do that again. We have a little weird thing that's going to be a little different this year, in that during the course of last session, we discovered that technically we're not required to go through the governor's budget office to get a Nevada budget, that we can submit directly to the legislature. We haven't figured out how to make that work and how we really want to work that work, because I don't really want to cut the governor's office out of the process. That would be a mistake, I think. But that may impact how we handle TTD going forward as well. And as far as your third question was, the intent was to get the California 2/3 of the 777 through funding on project side on transportation. That's probably going to be subject to all the other budget issues we're facing in California. So I can't give you a strong read on that. Julie may be able to give you a better understanding on where the status is of that. I'm afraid I can't.
Well, okay. Thank you for that, Chris. Sorry, Madam Chair, just one follow-up. So on, I'm meeting with the governor's office tomorrow. So I'll discuss that issue and let TRPA know kind of where that's at. I think it's going to be really hard for us to create TTD as their own entity, and people almost feel more comfortable going through TRPA because it's so well known, and TTD is still kind of not as well known, even though it's in the compact. And then on the California side, when we lobbied the state of Nevada and the governor for the 1/3 TTD general fund, we told them we'd be asking for the same from California. So I think it's very important that we ask for that and put it as, a grant to TTD as part of the environmental funds that you would address with Cody. So those are, my thoughts. I'm happy to chat about it online, but I think it's really important that we live up to the promise that we made to the governor's office when we originally came to them about the TTD funds.
Absolutely. And we'll certainly do that. It's California's in the deep hole. So we're going to have to be creative in how we find solutions to some of these problems. And in your conversation with the governor's office, we're perfectly willing to continue the current process of passing that money on to TTD. It's not a problem. We pass money back and forth to TTD all the time. So it's not like there's any administrative burden or anything like that.
Mr. Bass?
Yeah. So one thing I can tell you for sure is that the TDA funds, the transportation funds, are coming out of the gas tax, and they are protected from being able to be carved out through any of these budget cuts. So yeah. I think that as the way California looks at it, they probably are contributing the 2/3 because of TDA transit funds, because of the things that they see going into the basin. And the good thing is those are protected because of the gas tax and it being a voter initiative. So yeah, that's the little bit that I know.
Well, my concern is I'm sorry, Madam Chair. It's just not going to TTD's operations. But again, we can continue to have that discussion, but that I just want to make sure that we're living up to that promise.
Yeah, the 777 was intended to be in addition to the existing TDA and STF funds. Yeah.
Right.
And those funds, we administer them, but those funds actually go directly to the operators. So TTD and Placer County get all the money. We take a small amount for planning. I think we get like 50,000 or 80,000 for planning. That's about it in administration.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are there any other committee members online that have questions, Ms. Bowman? Okay, hearing none, let's go ahead and go to public comment on this item. If any member of the public wishes to address the Operations and Governance Committee on this item, please raise your hand now, either in person or by clicking the raise hand button or *9 on your phone. Is there anybody in the room that would like to address the committee on this item? Seeing none, can we go online, please?
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised to make public comment.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and close public comment. Are there any further comments from the committee? If not, then I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to recommend acceptance of the January 2024 financial statements. Thank you. There's a motion. Maybe we have roll call.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Dis, Ms. Gustafson, Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Lane.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Great, thank you. Good discussion. Though we will definitely follow up on all of that, especially as it relates to the Transportation District, as we're all members of that body as well. Thank you, Ms. Hill, for making those points.
Thank you, Madam
That
Chair.
brings us- Yes. Did she say Madam Chair? Oh, that brings us to agenda item number 4. Discussion and possible recommendation for adoption of the 2024 Aquatic Invasive Species Watercraft Inspection Fee Schedule. Information on this item can be found on page 49 of your packet. I'd like to pass this over to Mr. Boos to introduce this item. Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
Oh,
Thank you.
yay.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Yeah, you did well.
Okay.
I get all kinds of fun ones with that one. Yeah, so my name is Tom Booz. I'm the AIS Prevention Coordinator within the AIS program of the TRPA. So the purpose, as stated, is the TRPA code states the governing board shall approve the fees every year. And so we're recommending the governing board approve the proposed watercraft inspection fee schedule for 2024. A little background on the program is watercraft are inspected are required to be inspected at the inspection station. So we're going from upper left to right, top to bottom on this slide. So watercraft are inspected at one of 3 watercraft inspection stations. If they do not pass inspection because we found mud plants, animals, or water, they are decontaminated. And then once the boat is decontaminated, we sell them a sticker and we install a seal, which basically links the boat to the trailer, which indicates to the ramp staff that that boat hasn't launched anywhere else, because if it had, that seal would be broken. We do some data entry. The boater proceeds to the launch ramp, and then at the launch ramp, the certified seal inspectors that we train and have contracts with then inspect that seal to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with, that it's intact. They're allowed to launch. And then when the boat comes out of the water, we apply another seal, which allows it to come back to the ramp without having to go to the inspection station. So the AIS program requires inspection, as I mentioned, and a purchase of the sticker to launch. And the sole purpose of this is to prevent the introduction of aquatic invasive species into the lake. That process that I went through is the security. The last line of security is the launch ramps. The program has been incredibly successful over 15 years. That's the gold standard in the nation. A lot of people come to us as the model program, and we're fortunate to have the code support the program by having mandatory inspection. Not a lot of programs have that ability. We do contract with the Tahoe RCD, who implements the process, and we could not be successful without their involvement. They've been with us since the beginning, and they're absolutely incredible to work with the knowledge that they have over those 15 years. And we do, prior to September, we were always happy to tout the fact that we have had no new invasions in the lake in 15 years. Well, that changed in September with the discovery of the New Zealand mud snails. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So with the inspection process and the decontamination process, we have fees for those services, which is why we're here. One of the most critical EAP programs the Protect Lake Tahoe is the Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Program. So you'll see here 3 separate stickers. It's cut off a tad, but they're the Tahoe in and out sticker is when a boat first comes to the inspection station, say it's a brand new boat, they get inspected, they purchase a Tahoe in and out sticker. You are allowed to come back to the inspection station as many times as you want throughout that season to get inspected at no charge. But we do charge for decons regardless. And then the single inspection pass is basically the Tahoe in and out, but it's only for a 7-day period. The Tahoe only sticker is once you have been inspected and have had a Tahoe in and out previously, you can purchase a Tahoe only sticker either at the stations or at the ramps. We contract at the ramps to sell those. So if you show up at the boat launch with your seal intact, you can purchase a Tahoe only sticker. And it's basically a receipt that they've been inspected in the past. So why do we inspect? It's a tad blurry on the screen, but the picture on the left is about a 2-inch disc on the back of a boat. It's very encrusted. It probably came somewhere from the Great Lakes, but those mussels that you find in the crevices are just a few millimeters long. And then the picture on the right is a propulsion system on a jet ski that is really, really encrusted with mussels. It's probably one of the worst boats we've seen. So that is what we're looking for. Again, we're looking for mud, plants, animals, and water. If we find those things, we consider them not to be clean, drained, and dry, and it requires decontamination. So diving into funding sources and budget, more graphs in honor of Mr. Kyler. The pie pieces are, I'll go through each one. 35% of the program budget or funding sources comes from the prevention fees. So what we're here today to talk about. 32% comes from the general fund, funds from California and Nevada, $375,000 each, $750 total. The next chunk is 19%, and that is California Division of Boating and Waterways grants that we've been successful in competing for the last 7 years. The next chunk is the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act at 11%, and 3% is from the AIS Task Force, and that's a funding program that gives funds to states that have a federally approved AIS management plan. The overall budget for the program is roughly 2.4 million. The contract that we have with the Tahoe RCD is about 1.6. And this follows the EIP model. All these funding sources, excuse me, it's broken into multiple sectors of federal, state, local, private fundings. It's the idea of all sources coming together to amplify the impact and increase the pace and scale of the program. So to sticker sales, this is the prevention fee chunk, that 35%. Sticker sales over the last 5 years have been incredibly steady. You know, we've gone through COVID, we've gone through Caldor, we've gone through record snow, and all those things, potentially drought, high water, lots of factors, but it's been steady for the last 5 years. And the yellow bar is the total sales, the blue are Tahoe only stickers, the orange are the Tahoe in and out, and the little gray ones are the single inspection passes. The Tahoe only are much higher because about 70% of those sales occur at the launch facilities, like I explained earlier, through our contracts. So this was really a great, the steadiness is really helpful when we're trying to forecast budgeting, knowing that regardless of kind of what happens, sticker sales remain steady. The state of the program, we have had some recent budget impacts. The cost of labor, as everybody knows, is just increasing. From 2016 to 2019, we are offering $14 an hour for our inspectors. And we went up to 16 for 2020 and 21, 18 and 22, and up to 20 now in 23. And that's what we're going to offer in 24. So really steady climb. I'm trying to meet the market. Unfortunately, we haven't really seen a whole lot of change, and that's what I'm hearing from other places around town or around the lake or the launch facilities, especially. Like, they can offer more money, but it doesn't really change. But we had to keep pace as best we can. We've lost some of those grant funds at 19% from the California Division of Boating and Waterways. We were unsuccessful in competing for that this year. Couple reasons for that. One is the program is just much more, or the grant cycle process is just much more competitive, which is a good thing for our lake, because that means there are more programs being implemented in the state of California. And they have a two-tier system. Tier 1 is for building prevention programs. Tier 2 is for existing prevention programs, and they prioritize the building of a prevention program. So again, that benefits us at Lake Tahoe. And then also they've had some financial issues with that those funds come from the AIS boating, California AIS boating sticker. And they've had some issues there that they're trying to resolve. So they don't have as much money to provide to the applicants. And then just the general cost to operate the program. Everything has gone up: propane, fuel, the supplies that we need to purchase to run the decontamination units, and complicated boats just continue to come off the market. It's amazing to me over the years, the changes that we've seen. They're bigger, they have more ballast tanks, they have computerized systems that we have to navigate how to figure out how to use, because a lot of the boaters don't really know for what we need to do. They know the basic stuff, but it takes time to navigate that. In response to the New Zealand mud snail discovery, there are also some new operating costs. We are planning to hire 3 roving inspectors, and their primary audience and role is going to be interacting with the non-motorized users that access the lake from the hundreds of places that you can just walk from your car to the beach. So we're going to be providing a lot of education and outreach to those folks, because we recognize that that is a gap in our program, and not necessarily a gap. We've always addressed them, but the New Zealand mud snail really alerted us that we need to do better. And so the roving inspectors are going to be a primarily outreach education thing, encouraging them to become a Tahoe keeper, which is a stewardship program, teaching them how to clean, drain, dry their hand-launched watercraft, abiding by the principles, and hopefully sharing that information with other people that they see. And then the other role they're going to have is, like I said, we have contracts with the ramp facilities that are the last line of security. We're going to be asking them to provide message to boaters about the New Zealand mud snails. And we also have, we train people that have kiosks at the access points to beaches like Kings Beach, Baldwin Beach, Pope Beach, where a person actually interacts with a human. We ask them to screen, essentially assess risk for non-motorized watercraft when they're coming in. And they're going to be helping to ensure that that's happening at some of those locations. So we're really excited about these folks. It's a pilot again. We did it years ago and it was successful. So yeah, we're really excited about the prospects of this to really have some better outreach around the lake. So to the inspection fees, we are proposing increases this year, and the premise behind increases is we want to maintain a balance of having fair prices for the boaters, but we also need to sustain our program. And so, like I mentioned, the 3 different types of stickers, the in and out stickers and the single inspection passes, are divided into categories. Smaller boats, less than 17 feet, and personal watercraft is one. Boats greater than 17 feet is the other. And so for Tahoe only, we're proposing a $5 increase. And for the boats under 17 feet, a $10 increase, and a $15 increase for boats that are bigger than 17 feet. And again, the inspection process is all about protecting the lake from aquatic invasive species. And I do apologize, in the staff report, I included a table that looks very similar to this, and it does include a $12, this fee that you're seeing includes a $12 shoreline fee. The Exhibit 1 in the staff report does not include that $12, but that $12 was implemented, I think, in 2019, and it's a fee that, like, the shoreline fee increased the number of moorings that were permitted, which means more boating, which means the spread of aquatic invasive species that were in the lake could spread more. So that $12 goes to control programs. We also, bear with me, there's a lot of information on this slide. We're also proposing increases to decontamination. So if you don't pass the inspection, you get decontaminated. In 2023, we had 2 categories of decontamination. One was for a single system, and the other one was for more than one system. And a system is an engine, a bilge, an air conditioner, a generator, an anchor locker, the hull, the trailer. We all call them systems. And if one of them is not clean and drain and dry, we decontaminate whatever one isn't. And so we're proposing to break the two categories into 3. So a single system in a jet ski 2 to 3 systems, and then those that have 4 systems or more. And so for the single systems, we're proposing a $5 increase and a $10 increase for the systems of 2 to 3. And then for the complex decontaminations of 4 or more system, we're proposing a $110 fee for that. And then the ballast boats, back in 2022, we added this category for ballast boats, ballast tanks. So ballast tanks by design don't drain completely. You hit a button, water comes spitting out the through hull fitting. That's all the boater can do. But sometimes they don't hit that button and water comes out. So we have it broken down into drained and undrained. If the boater did everything they can to be clean, drain, and dry, it's not their fault that there's standing water left in the bottom of it. We still have to decontaminate it to eliminate that risk of having AIS in that water. So we are proposing a $5 increase for the drain ballasts and a $10 increase for the undrained ballasts. And all of the decontamination fees are avoidable other than the ballast tank ones. So if someone comes clean, drain, dry, they don't need to have a decontamination. And that's an incentive. Dennis shared with me last week that we used to not have decontamination fees. It was just an inspection fee. And if they failed, we would decontaminate them for the same inspection fee. But there's no incentive in that. And we want to incentivize the boaters to do better, to be clean and drain dry and change their behaviors every time they boat. And so we recognized that after the decontamination fees were in place, we had much greater percentage of boats arriving clean, drain, and dry. Not perfect, and we're still working on it, but it's always around 50 to 55% of people coming clean, drain, dry. And the last fee is the attached mussels fee. So if we find a boat that has attached mussels, whether they're dead or alive, it's a lot of work, and we implemented that. I'll get to that in the next slide, but we're proposing a $100 increase for that, just to reflect the amount of work, because we have to coordinate with the states because they ultimately have the jurisdiction. So I'm sure you're asking when the last time we had fee increases, and here's a quick summary of that. There were no changes from 2015 to 2018. And then in 2019 to 2023, we had targeted fee increases to reflect the work required to implement the program, as I was getting at. So in 2019, we increased Tahoe only stickers by $3, and the $3 is an odd number, but with that $12 increase, we've learned over time that we need to make it easy for our inspectors to do math. And it sounds simple, but if we have 8s and 3s and 7s and 9s, we had a lot of mistakes. So we keep everything in increments of 5, hoping that people can do that simple math. We did increase the Tahoe in and out into single inspection passes for $5 to $5. Multiple system decons increased $10 in 2021, and we increased that attached mussel fee from $200 to $250. And then in 2022, we did single system decontaminations. We increased that $5, and that is when we included those 2 categories of decontamination for the ballast boats. So moving forward, we will continue to apply for grants, and we will continue to seek federal and state sources such as the LTRA. The LTRA reauthorization is a critical funding source for the program. And we are also going to be working with the states to keep their contributions in line with public and private match. And then every year we continue to review operations to find efficiencies. And that's part of the beautiful relationship we have with the Tahoe RCD. They've been here for 15 years and they know the in and out of every aspect of the program. And as we refine our budget and refine the program, we're always finding places to save. And a great example of that is over the years, we've upgraded our equipment to be more efficient, used for fuel and propane, but also we buy better stuff that's going to last longer, so we don't have to spend the time replacing things and doing the maintenance of it. And that's an ongoing process as we learn more and as technology changes. And lastly, something exciting, we are working on 2 permanent inspection stations, both at Myers and Spooner, and they're in the planning stages. And the diagram on the bottom right is the mock-up rendering of what Myers could look like. And it's just across the street from the current location. And we are proposing to have workforce housing there. There's a lot that has to happen between now and then, but it's a very exciting prospect that could ultimately save the program some funds. So recommending the governing board adopt the resolution containing the 2024 watercraft inspection fee. I thank you for your time and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great, very good report, and what an important program. Are there questions from members of the committee in the room?
Yeah, thanks
Mr.
for the
Bass?
report. And again, I echo the comments, such an important program. Curious with, and maybe this isn't about the fine side, but is there a fine if somebody doesn't and somehow actually gets a boat in the lake without one of these stickers? What is the recourse of the fine for somebody that doesn't get a sticker?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Bass. We do have an enforcement program that can provide, it's up to a $5,000 fine. And we do periodically have illegal launches, mostly jet skis, because they're easier you can just walk them down the shore with a couple of people. But the program is so well established that it's not very common. The last time it happened, I think it was during COVID, when it was just kind of a zoo here and people were coming up here in hordes. But that's the beauty of the program, is it's been around for 15 years. The security system at the ramps, if you don't have a seal, you don't launch. People learn that, and most places that people visit or wherever they're staying, like, they're all connected to the importance of the program because it's their livelihood, so that the message just gets out there. But thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there committee members online that have questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Let's go ahead and open this up to the public for comment. If any member of the public wishes to address the Operations and Governance Committee on this agenda item, please raise your hand now, either in person or by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or by dialing *9 on the phone, and you will be called on and unmuted by a TRPA staff member. Are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item? Seeing none, can we go online, please?
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised to make public comment.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring this back to the governing or the body here. I have one question that I just want to clarify. There's still it's still not clear to me when you compare what was written on page 50 to what's in the actual attachment A, exhibit 1, only with regards to one line item, and that is the complex decontamination for more systems. On page 50, it shows that there is no current 2023 charge for this complex system, but on the attachment, it shows that there's currently a $50 fee.
Yeah, I apologize for that. It basically, we have two categories currently, and we're making it 3. So there wasn't a comparable fee to say we're raising it $5. We're just adding another category, which, oops. Yeah. So in 2023, it was one system or more than one system, but currently. And so we're adding that extra category. So that's why there's just a blank space, because I didn't have anything to compare it to. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
It's okay. I just want to make sure I understood.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll bring this back to the committee for a motion.
Sure, I'll put forward a motion to adopt a proposed resolution approving the 2024 watercraft inspection fee schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Is there any further comments? Seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Bass,
Yes.
Ms. Bowman,
Yes.
Ms. Gustafson, Ms. Dis, Ms. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Lane.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
thank you. That brings us to agenda item number 5, which is upcoming topics. Mr. Kyler? Thank you.
For the record, Chris Kyler, Chief Financial Officer for the agency. I'd like to take a second, though, just to clarify one of my remarks about Alexis's question on TTD funding, specifically the part about the state funding that we just got from California, from Nevada, and the matching from California. TTD's problem is the compact that created TRPA established a mechanism for TRPA to be funded just from general operations. It did not include anything in TTD for that. And they need about $1 million a year just for basic operations. They get the funding for the projects and for the transit, but they don't get that money for operations, and they have to do an A&O transfer or something like that to do it. This money was intended to cover that. When I said in California, we're going to try to do that as part of the 777, I did not mean that the grant money from the grant-ish or the project money from California would count against the matching funds to Nevada. We'd have a separate category that would come up with about $650,000 to match the Nevada contribution. So it would go directly to paying TTD's operating expenses. So as opposed to a project.
And I
Great
wouldn't
news.
know the TTD budget this well, but how has that $1 million been being funded for the last, let's say, 10 years of
It's
TTD?
been through an overhead allocation, an overhead charge to the existing funding. But as I'm sure you're all aware, I mean, it's hard enough to fund transportation anyways. So having to tack on an administrative cost on top of that just drains more resources from the program, and it limits the budget. It limits the.
But essentially, TTD has had to kind of carve that out of the transit funds or of surface transportation projects or things where
Yeah.
they're having to figure out how to find that administrative money. So
Exactly.
you could essentially say that 2/3 of that funding has been coming from California, considering the majority of transit funds as well as capital project funds, and those things are coming from California. Therefore, we've been paying for 2/3 of the existence of
To be
TTD
honest,
anyways, right?
Probably more than 2/3.
Probably more than 2/3.
Because you get a lot more transit money from California than you get from Nevada.
Right.
And it's not just the transit operations money, it's also the project money, but the project money for TTD varies a lot from year to year. So it's not a stable funding source. And that's really what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get to a place of stability so their employees aren't constantly looking over their shoulders wondering if they're going to lose their jobs because they don't have money.
Ms. Hill, is that clarification helpful?
Yes, I'm very happy to hear that. So thank you so much, Mr. Keller. And yes, I'm looking forward to helping however I can with those discussions.
Excellent.
Yeah, the reason we're trying to put it in with the other stuff is it's clear that if we went and asked for that money in general fund money this year, the answer is going to be no. I mean, Department of Finance in California is already zeroed out. They're not accepting any BCSPs from anybody for any reason. They've all been waiting for the May revise, which will have new revenue numbers. But year to date, the general fund is like 63% coming from the income tax. And the income tax right now is running about 5% below forecasting year to date. So,
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Do you have any
terms-
upcoming?
Upcoming things here, main thing is we'll start going into the budget cycle. There's one concern, a little concern I have, and that is that your strategic planning offsite for the board has now slipped into May. We kind of have to start to build a budget now, so we're gonna have to make some assumptions about the work plan. And then if you guys choose to change that in their May offsite, we'll have to scramble a little bit to get that in the budget correctly. Otherwise, that's about all I really had to talk about.
Okay, thank you for that. This is an opportunity for committee members that might have comments to make.
None
Mr.
from me.
Bass, no? Anybody online have comments, additional comments you'd like to make? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring this back to public interest comments. Our final matter of business is our general public comment period. If any member of the public wishes to address the Operations and Governance Committee at this time, please raise your hand now, either in person or by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or by dialing *9 on your phone, and you will be called on and unmuted by a TRPA staff person. Please come forward.
Good morning, Ellie Waller. My questions are related to future issues on the reliance of the 777 budget as well as the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act. Just looking at what will happen if some of those funds do not come in at the projected necessary requirements and needs. And on the Tahoe Transportation District discussions that you're having, is there any future issues where the compact may need to be revised based on how funding sources are coming in? Thank you.
Thank you. Good comments. Are there anybody else in the room that would like to address this committee? Okay, seeing none, we'll go online, please.
Madam Chair, there are no hands raised for public comment.
Okay, thank you. We'll bring that back. Ms. Waller asked some very good questions. Mr. Kyler, do you want to speak to any of those?
Can't really say I have a definitive answer at this time because there's a lot of things that
Yeah,
are up in the air.
magic.
So
Fall
those
into the
are,
future.
those questions are very much on our minds as well.
Yeah, thank you for bringing those to our attention, and we will continue that conversation. As we know, the state of California is going to be in trouble for a while. Therefore, okay, so may I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you.